Welcome to episode 15 of the Carnism Debunked podcast. Today I have Lee Stewart on the show. Lee is an animal rights activist in the London scene who I've done activism with numerous times, and he's also a business owner who's managed to leave routine work life behind and, as he puts it, be his own boss. So I'm hoping this episode is an interesting listen for those of you who wish to do the same as him one day. So we're going to discuss that as well as some vegan issues today. But anyhow, Lee, welcome to the show.
Hiya, mate. Good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no worries. Good to have you on. So talk to me about how you built your business and what it is that you do. Tell us about your business and how that all started.
Okay, so obviously it's quite a long story, so I'll try and break it down as small as I can into little chunks. It all started in 2012, so it's about 10 years ago. I was working as an engineer at Caterpillar in Peterborough, where I lived at the time, and I'd been a mechanic for about 5 years before that as well. I've been an engineer for about 5 years, and I was just getting really fed up, to be honest. I was sick of the job. It wasn't a bad paid job, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't particularly exciting. It wasn't fulfilling, and I was just getting very depressed, shall we say, with the way that it was going and the way that I could see my life going. So I was getting itchy feet. I knew there was something I wanted to do. I was getting sick of the corporate world. I was doing shifts as well a lot. So I used to do 12-hour night shifts, 12-hour day shifts with a very quick turnaround in between. Which wasn't doing good for my health. As you probably know, working night shifts as well, it's just not very nice having to do those kind of hours. So I wanted to change, basically. I was getting fed up, and I was having a conversation with my girlfriend at the time, my girlfriend's brother-in-law, and he worked for a property investing company based in Peterborough, but they also did training on how to become a property investor. And he explained to me the basic simple principle of buying a property that's run down, doing it up, and then remortgaging, pulling the money back out, and then being able to recycle that money and go again and get another property, which tickled my fancy. And I was like, okay, that sounds pretty interesting. And he explained that that's what he did basically for this company in Peterborough. And we got talking, and he said that there was an event on a few weeks down the line that company, the company he worked for, was doing a big sort of promotional training event. It was 3 days long. It was at Wembley. And he said, if you want, I can try and get you on the volunteer list, so you don't have to pay anything. Come along for the 3 days. You get all your food paid for, hotels, etc., and you got to help out, obviously, putting stuff away, etc. But you get to go along to the event for free. And I was like, brilliant. He also said I'd get to see and touch the FA Cup. And being a big football fan, I was like, okay, that's all the motivation that I needed. I was like, great, I get to go to Wembley for free, and I get to hold the FA Cup. So I went along. And I did get to hold the FA Cup, got a picture of that. I was very happy. But at the end of the 3 days, I was just blown away by all of these different stories, inspiring stories of people that had basically started their own business and become their own boss and built a property business from virtually no money, most of them. And I learned about all the different strategies that you could do. And I was just blown away. I often felt like, probably like you and most people listening, that to become a property investor, you got to have money. You got to be rich. Being a property investor is only for the rich and the wealthy. So I was blown away by listening to these people that had done it with virtually no money. And it kind of snowballed on from there. After that event, I went along to more of the events that they run. I was reading books, going to webinars. I went on some training courses, and I just got a real thirst for wanting to learn more about property, because it was making me think, this is probably what I could do. I could create something and be my own boss and do whatever I want. Then in 2013, April 2013 was a big turning point for me, because I've been learning about property for about, 6-7 months. And I put up a advert on the internal internet at the engineering company I was working at, and it was advertising rooms. I was just trying to build up some interest for potentially some rooms that I was going to try and get hold of. I didn't have any at the time, but I was just doing some things. And my manager caught wind that it was me that put it up, and he come down to my desk and he sacked me there and then on the spot. His words were something along the lines: if you think you can build a property business on my time, you got another thing coming. Pack your bag. And because I was a contractor. So I've been a contractor for like 5 years. I wasn't very happy about the fact that I was a contractor. I'd missed up on quite a few permanent jobs, but because he could do that, and I didn't have anything to fall back on. I didn't have a leg to stand on. So I left, And I sat in the car park that afternoon, shitting myself. I was like, fucking hell, I've got a mortgage, I've got bills to pay for. I had a girlfriend at the time. I was like, what am I going to do? Do I go back to being a mechanic? Because I know I could do that. I did that job. Again, wasn't a bad job. It didn't set me on fire. Or do I try and build something from scratch like this property business that I'm learning so much about? Thankfully, I decided to go and start that business. The boss, to be fair, gave me the kick up the arse that I needed. I had some savings, and I had also, thankfully, on my mortgage, I had an insurance policy where if I got made redundant, my mortgage payments were covered for a certain period of time. So I was like, okay, I'm going to use that. I'm going to use my savings, and I'm going to go headfirst into trying to build a property business. 6 months later, pleased to say, I managed to get my first property, which was a rent to rent, which long and short of it is I was renting the property from an owner, and then I was renting it out on a room by room basis. That property was making me about £800 a month. So I managed to get that, got the ball rolling. It was say about 6 months later that I managed to get my second and third. I could have done that much quicker, but I was just going through some personal issues at that time. I split with my girlfriend and I went back into working. I worked for Yodel from December, I think this was, just because I needed to keep myself busy. I wasn't in a very good place at the period in time. And this one property wasn't really giving me enough things to do. So I went and worked for Yodel, and then I managed to get my second and third property while I was working for Yodel, actually, in March and April. Again, they were both paying me £800 a month. So I was making just under £2,500 a month from those three houses. And then I quit Yodel in July. So I was only there for 6 months because it was only going to be a temporary thing. And I was earning more money from that than working at Yodel. And that was it, really. It just snowballed on from there. I got working with a business partner. We got I think I got 8 rent to rents. I did something called service accommodation, which is like Airbnb. We started doing training of our own. We did a commercial conversion, which was a block of offices that we converted into flats. We started doing new build development, and we just went on and on and on from there, basically. And that was 2013. Then in 2017, I wasn't very happy with the way the business was going. Basically, what I felt like I'd kind of got out of one job, but I was now getting into another one. I was working all the time, and that's not why I got into property. Originally, why I got into property was passive income, right? The idea of work once and get paid over and over for it. That's what property does. So I kind of lost my way a little bit with all these things that was going on. Stopped working with my business partner, went off on my own, and just went back to what I do now, which is house shares and buying my own properties. And then that's where I am today. So currently we manage 14, I say we, it's me and my mum. We manage 13, soon to be 14 house shares, HMOs as they're called, which is house of multiple occupancy. 7 of which are owned by my business partners, 7 of which are owned by me. And it generates enough money to pay me and my mum, and we don't have to answer to anyone.
Yeah, so that sounds like you've put a lot of work into that. How do you manage to balance running a business while being an animal rights activist at the same time? Or is it just the case now that you're really flexible with your own hours, and it's just like you find that you actually have more time to be an activist than you would have done before?
Well, I got kind of lucky, if I'm honest, because I didn't go vegan until 2017. So this was all I was gaining momentum and building this before I was even vegan. So I wasn't an activist, to be honest. So, but it was hard work. The first years, as any business, when you're trying to start out, you have to plow your heart and soul into it, blood, sweat and tears and all that. So I didn't plan on it, but the way it happened, ultimately I became vegan in 2017. I then changed the angle of my business and went off and did my own thing, and it freed up a lot of my time. So I kind of just fell into being an activist a lot more because my business had got to a stage where I was leveraging, systemizing everything. And now, it's different when we're buying houses because we're just going through a purchase at the minute. So I am busier than usual at the moment. But if we've not got much to do, if we've only got a couple of rooms to fill, because we've got 84 rooms, I think it is. If I've only got a couple of rooms to fill, me and my mum, it only takes me, let's say, a couple of hours a day, 4 days a week, probably is what roughly I have to work. The rest of the time, I can go and do what I want, which used to be activism. But since March 2020 and going into lockdown, I haven't really done any activism since then. Obviously, it was hard for any of us to do activism because of the lockdown and everything that's gone on. But before then, 2017, 18, 19, I was doing loads of activism right up until lockdown. Actually, I was with Animal Rebellion right up until the very day, even as it happened. Actually, what was they called? Pause the System. I was part of Pause the System, even that was as lockdown was happening. I was helping to do that. So I was in a good place where I could do loads of activism, and I've got my business there in the background working away, paying me, and I don't have to do much to keep it going.
Yeah. Do you have tips specifically for vegans of all people to start a business?
It depends what the business is, right? And it depends. It depends if you want to be a business owner. Like a lot of people say they want to be, but I don't know if you've heard of Gary Vaynerchuk, but he talks about this a lot. He talks about being self-aware, and not everybody wants to be a business owner. It's not easy. It's not for the faint-hearted. There is a lot of cons, shall we say, and drawbacks to it. It's not all plain sailing. But if you want to be your own boss, if you want to build something, then with regards to one of the things I had to do at the start was detach myself from the peer group I was around at the time. Because one thing I learned about the property world at the start, they always used to say the nuts and bolts of it are easy. We can teach you how to invest in property. That's not the difficult part. The hard part is getting the right mindset, because you're going to get setbacks. You're going to get people that basically say you can't do it. You're going to get things go wrong, but it's having the right mindset to keep going and believing that you can do it, because a lot of people give up, and that's where a lot of people fail. It's on the mindset. It's not on the how to do it. So any tips for people? Again, if you do want to build a business, it's just getting stuck in, getting the right people around you, learning from people that have done it, and just not giving up.
Yeah. And what would you say to someone who wants to find, I guess what I'm about to get at is, do you think there's a certain gap in the vegan market that if someone was to set up a business specifically in the vegan realm, you would say this would be the best idea? Would it be like a vegan restaurant, a vegan plant-based meat company, a vegan event thing? Like, what would you recommend would be the thing to go for someone who wanted to set up a vegan business?
It's hard to say, isn't it? I mean, I've thought about this quite a bit. Like, what would I invest in? If I had the money or could find the money to invest in something. I think there's a lot of obviously vendors and food vendors out there now. There's probably not that many events out there. Like I know a guy called JP who does a lot of events in and around London, but I think that there's possibly a bit of a gap in the market for that. There was vegan nights, but they fell off the radar for a long time, and they're not particularly a vegan company, so to speak. They're not run by vegan people, so there could be a bit of a gap there. But it's hard to say, isn't it? Because the main thing you want to do when you become vegan is you want to be an activist. But how do you build a business around being an activist? It's difficult to know. Like, I often used to think this with Animal Rebellion, because when I was there, I was pretty much full-time as well, but there was a lot of people there that were also full-time, but they were reliant upon sort of housing that's supplied by the organization. And I did often used to think, God, how great would it be if, you know, the people here were not blowing my own trumpet, but were like me in a sense, where they had something financially backing them up, where they were taken care of financially, and then they could put all their time and effort into it, and they haven't got to worry about finding money or taking money from the organization to keep themselves going, etc., etc. If they've got something that is keeping them going, they haven't got to worry about taking it elsewhere. One thing that I learned at the start was from a life coach. Actually, I had a life coach for a number of years, again, while I was starting this property business. But he said, you can't help the weak if you are weak yourself. You know, the poor can't help the poor. You've got to basically get yourself in shape, get your house together, get your shit together, and then you can go out and really make a difference in the world and really affect positive change if you've got yourself together, rather than kind of, you know, fumbling through things and trying to keep your head above water yourself, or try and get food on the table yourself. If you can put the effort in at the start to get yourself strong, then you can really give strong. And that really resonated with me.
Yeah, that kind of ties into what I was going to ask you, actually. I was going to say to you, is it important that vegans are successful? And if so, how does that relate to animal rights?
I mean, as I just kind of said, if all vegans were successful and every business that we started became successful, money makes the world go around, whether you like it or not. So the more money that we have in this movement, the better, whether that's going towards keeping businesses going, or not just going, but thriving and helping them grow. So it spreads the vegan word, whether that's giving more money to activists. Like I give to patrons now, like my Patreon account, I give to activists and I give to sanctuaries. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, everyone's up for debate as to how much you want to give to each, but I've always split it. I always give exactly the same amount to to activists and to sanctuaries. So the more money you can create, the more money you can give, right? The more money you can give to people that are going out there and being activists, the more money you can give to sanctuaries. So the more money we create in this movement, the better it's going to be for all of us. So the more business that can thrive, the better it is for everyone that's involved in the movement, whether you're an activist or whether you run a sanctuary.
You're 100% right, because this is a point I made on a post ages ago, right? I want vegans to be out of the quote unquote rat race. I don't know if that's a species term or not to you, because, you know, we're like, you know, I see complaints about, you know, oh, look at this person who's doing full-time activism. He's just mooching off other people's money while he does this. It's like, wait, do you not want, but where do you want him working? Do you want him working in fucking Tesco's instead, stacking the trolleys, or do you want him being paid to actually be out on the streets making changes for animals? But it's good that we also have people like you who are happy doing what they do, like successful in a business separate from veganism, who can, you know, actually donate to sanctuaries and donate to those activists as well. And it just goes to show, like, you need that balance in the movement. But we ultimately, we do need money in the movement, don't we? Otherwise, how can it even function in a world that's like we're up against one of the most powerful entities there is in animal agriculture, right? You think of the money they have. How on earth can we ever compete with them if we don't have it ourselves?
100%. And people like yourself, I'm a patron to Jack. I'm sure you know Jack. He was he did a lot of the cubes and the square. Humane Hancock, I think that's still his name, isn't it? Humane Hancock. But people like him, people like Ed, even Joe Carpstrong, I know he has a bit of a different approach, but I want all those activists out there on the street doing what they're doing because they're fucking good at it and they're opening people's minds up. I don't want them stuck in Tesco doing a 9 to 5. Like, I want you know, what's it matter if we all chip in and give these people 20, 30 quid a month? We get, because it doesn't take a lot, you know, you only need a couple of grand probably a month, and that's probably going to be enough to substitute what you were earning from a job. And then you can get out there and do your work full time, and you can think of ways of doing it. Look how much Ed has grown over the last few years and how much his activism has exploded. So like, we need to get off this the mindset we have of money is bad, because we need money in this movement. And if people are, like you say, either it's like me, where you're creating money from elsewhere and then you're putting it back into the community, whether it is through donations or whether it is your time, as I said, like I was giving a lot of my time to Animal Rebellion, then it can only be a good thing.
Yeah, 100%. And what do you make of the claim that, you know, oh, this is like, doing this kind of stuff is capitalism, and it feeds into like the idea that capitalism is bad? I mean, I'm sure everyone can agree that like no financial system is perfect, right? Every single thing has flaws, right? Including whether it's socialism, whether it's capitalism. But what do you make of the idea that like doing this kind of stuff, or setting up a vegan business, for example, that was just for profit, that's capitalism and that's bad? What do you make of that?
I mean, you know, I think most of us are against capitalism, but I didn't become vegan because capitalism. I became vegan for the animals, right? So I'm just a bit blinkered in that sense. I'm like, whatever it is that helps us grow this movement and help as many animals as quickly as we can, then that's the route we should be taking. Like, what more can we do about capitalism at the minute? Like, that is a big thing to tackle or to try and change. Whereas getting activists out on the street so they can talk to people is something we can do like now. So why wouldn't we do that?
This is interesting because you're a business owner yourself, but it sounded there to me like you do see a lot of flaws with capitalism and you don't think it's particularly an ideal system. Is it the case that then maybe you just think, look, this is the capitalist world, this is the game we have to play? Is that your sort of mantra with this?
To an extent, like these are the cards we've been dealt at the moment, so to think. So let's just use them and play with them the best we can. And sort of tackle one thing at a time. At the moment, the thing that we all want to tackle is trying to get as many people to go vegan as quick as we can. So let's just use what tools we've got at our disposal to deal with that.
Yeah. And how do you think that money in the movement should be prioritized? Because I see a lot of squabbling here. I see a lot of people say, you should send money to this instead of that. You should do this instead of that. How would you respond to that?
So there is no right answer to this, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I know the right answer, because I don't. Because we can't say we should definitely do it this way, or we should definitely do it that way. My sort of take on it has always been like from a. Cause it was a lot of issue with people like Joey Carbstrong, James Aspey, Earthling Ed. A lot of the issue was they're getting given money, and then people are like, oh, that could be going to sanctuaries. For me personally, I think they're both just important. And I say I'm a patron for both. I send money to people like Jack, and I send money to sanctuaries like Tower Hill and Friends Sanctuary in London. So I personally split my money down the middle, because I think the sanctuaries do a great job of taking care of the animals that are already here. Obviously, we need them, and sanctuaries are great for potentially taking non-vegan people there and opening their eyes up to seeing the animals that we actually eat, as opposed to you never actually see them anywhere else. So going and seeing them happy, but also it's great for obviously us vegans to go somewhere and see what potentially it could be like if we were in a vegan world and there's animals taken care of everywhere. But also from the activist perspective, in my mind, they're helping the animals of tomorrow, so to speak. They're helping there be less animals bred into the world. So they're both important. I feel like sanctuaries are important to help the animals today. Activists are great for helping the animals in the future, or hopefully to prevent the animals being bred in the future. There's no right or wrong way. Like it all needs to keep going. The businesses that are out there, whatever kind of vegan business they are, they need to keep going as well. So it's hard to prioritize. I don't think there is a right or wrong answer. Ideally, we want it all to keep going as big and as strong as it can. And like we said before, the way to do that is get more money into the movement so we can give more to these people.
Yeah, there's obviously a mentality within the vegan movement that needs to change, because you see these posts that say, support sanctuaries, not saviors. Support, support this, not that. And shouldn't we just, instead of the not, shouldn't we change that to and? Shouldn't it be support sanctuaries and the activists they're called saviors? Shouldn't it be support vegan businesses and support vegan non-profits? I don't get why there's this sort of crabs in a bucket mentality of like, oh, well, this group isn't getting funding, therefore we shouldn't fund this group either.
Yeah. I've seen that. Again, I'm not going to pretend that I've got the answers. If anyone says that we shouldn't be giving money or funding activists and it should all go to sanctuaries, but okay, but tell me why. Like we've just gone through great examples of great activists. Then we've just said we don't want them working in Tesco's 9 to 5. Surely you're the same. Like, what's your mentality around that? Surely you understand that we need those people out there creating the content that they do to open up people's eyes. So, I'm open to hearing the discussions and talking to people about it, but I don't understand why you wouldn't want those people doing what they're doing. Why do you want them stuck in Tesco's? That's not...
It's crazy to me, especially as a lot of the people who raise this problem claim to be anti-capitalist. It's like, wait, you would rather that someone was working for like a mega conglomerate like Microsoft or Tesco or Apple or whatever it is, some massive corporation. How is that anti-capitalist? That's like the most capitalist thing you can do, is say, I don't want someone to be paid in the third sector doing activism. I want someone working for Sainsbury's or Tesco or Microsoft,
Yeah. And look, there's a lot of, this was a while ago now, but I remember there being, I try to stay out a lot of this stuff, to be honest, because it's very draining, but the whole James Aspey thing, Patreon, because I think he went on holiday or something a few times, so he was traveling or something like that, and people were going nuts at him. And I was always of the opinion, I was like, if you don't donate to him, then why are you getting so pissed off? If you donate to him and you're getting annoyed by it, just stop donating to him. Like,
you can control how you spend.
100%. And if you don't like what he's doing, well, that's fine. But why do people like slate everybody? So, and just because you're making money doesn't mean that you can't go and enjoy your fucking self. Like, I understand there's going to be a hang up if you're getting donations from, like Jack, for example. If I see Jack go on holiday, I'm not going to be texting him going, mate, you taking the piss? Like, I send you money. Fuck you doing going on holiday? Like, mate, I give that money to him.
A bill of his expenditures at the bar and everything. Every drink he's bought.
Exactly. Yeah, I give that money to him, just the same as what I do with sanctuaries. I give that money to them because I trust them to do the right thing. Yeah. And if they want to take themselves on holiday, if I see Mandy and Mark, for example, from Friend going on holiday. There is no way, same thing, I'm going to be getting in touch with them and going, what are you doing? Why isn't that money going towards the sanctuary? Like, I trust those people to make the right decision. And if there was ever anything that I was like, not sure about that, I would do the right thing, which is to contact them directly and say, look, what's this, and this about? Rather than just judging people, jumping online and start slagging people off all over social media. Because that's not productive. That's not going to help anybody.
Yeah, and that's another thing, right? It's like we deserve a break. We need a break sometimes. We're human, right? It's like some of these people want us to be miserable. It's like, I know we're trying to stop a Holocaust from going on, and so we should be active in stopping that. But at the same time, the severity of this Holocaust, it also means it is unfortunately mentally draining and exhausting for us. And we do deserve to actually smile sometimes in our shitty lives, you know, trying to fix this.
Yeah, 100%. I think burnout is very real in this movement, more so than anything, because it's such an emotional subject for all of us, because we see the terrible shit that we put animals through. It hits you hard, doesn't it? And you want to do as much as you can to stop it. But burnout is real. Like, I've experienced it. I've seen other activists go through it as well, where you just go in for it and trying and doing stuff. And it becomes it's never enjoyable, really, but you do need to have some kind of celebrate the victories, if you like, and have a sense that you're actually getting somewhere and you're doing something. I think one of the reasons why I've kind of struggled to get back into activism in the last 18 months is because of just how much it was taking up my time and how sapping it was and how depressing it could also be sometimes, not just from the hard work that we're doing, but also sometimes from the people in the movement itself, in the movement that you're meant to be on the same side and you're meant to be in the trenches with, and yet you still got people in this movement that are not happy or angry at you or the organization you work for. That was one thing I found with Animal Rebellion. So much negativity from activists who, you know, I'd done activism with. It's just a shame that also contributes to burnout. It doesn't come from just the activism itself. It comes from the people that we also do the activism with or in the movement with us.
Yeah, it's like, it seems that at the moment we face more issues from each other than we do from the fucking meat, dairy and egg industry. It's like we're our own worst enemy.
100%. It is fucking stupid, isn't it? Like, again, there's no right or wrong way to do this. I've always kind of said this, where it's just do what you can and let's all just help each other and stop being so judgy. If you don't like what someone else is doing, then don't follow them, or, you know, you just don't support them. Just let them, but then don't actively try and shit on them and put them down. You know, I never got that concept. If you're not happy about the way someone's doing their activism, then you just leave it. Yeah.
And you know, this is there's obviously a very current controversy that I think we should definitely discuss. We can't be having this discussion and not bring this up, right? So,
yeah, definitely.
What do you make of the recent criticisms about the vegan camp out? For anyone who doesn't know, it's the festival that takes place every year. And it has some controversies at the moment, which I think are inconsistent anyway, regarding like the land it's being used on, which is used for non-vegan activities. But because all events, essentially all vegan events, do take place on such land. But, you know, there's these criticisms that, you know, it's profiteering and this is bad because, oh, you know, all you're doing when you're buying a ticket for the camp out is you're just doing it. It's for profit. It's not for veganism. And like, what do you think are the motivations behind these criticisms, and what do you make of these criticisms, and why are they happening?
I mean, I went to the camp out in 2017, which was the second one. I'm not sure when you first went to it, but it was only the second one, and there was, I don't know, there was only 500-600-ish, maybe 1,000. I don't know, at the very most people there.
It was a few thousand at 2017. Was it? Yeah.
Was it? Okay. But it was still quite small. Like, you could tell this was a new thing.
Yeah.
But even then, I remember there being criticism. There's always been criticism of camp out. It's always happened. And it annoys me because when I first went in 2017, it was a bit of a shit show in some aspects. Was you there for 2017?
Yeah, well, I remember the food stall saga. I thought it was brilliant, apart from maybe like the parking distance and also the food stall saga. Like, they underestimated maybe the number of food stalls needed, and also on top of that, I think a fair few food vendors pulled out like on the week, like maybe 5 or so, which just cocked things up.
Yeah, so it was a long walk where you park your car with heavy bags, fucking heavy bags, for like a half-hour walk. And it was a 2-hour queue to get some food, and I think both tents were right next to each other, so you could hear the other one sometimes when someone speaking was next to it, if I remember. Was that one? It might have been that one. So there was a lot that was just wrong with it, but I still fucking loved that camp out in 2017 because it was my first one. I'd only been vegan for 4 months, and I was in a bit of a lonely, depressing place because, like most of us, when you go vegan, you don't have people around you. You're not that fortunate. So to go to a festival like that, where I met loads of other people, it was exactly what I needed. And it spurred me on to keep going. I wasn't on my own. So you let those things slide. I didn't mind that it was, a trek to the car or it took ages to get food, because I could see that it was being ran by vegans. It was at a vegan festival, for Christ's sake, with vegan vendors. So I was like, I don't care if it's been a bit shit in places. It's obviously new. It's the only thing like it going in the country. So I want to support it and I want it to carry on.
Yeah. But where do these criticisms that, it's for profiteering and stuff, where do you think this is coming from? Why do you think people are having this problem? Because they don't say that about a vegan cafe. Like if someone runs a vegan cafe, people say, let's support that. Which a vegan cafe isn't for vegan, it's for profit. That's why someone sets up a vegan cafe. So why are they singling out the camp out for this?
Well, I can empathise with Camp Out and with Jordan with this, because when I was starting my own business, my own property business, again, like I said to you, I had to change the peer group I was around, because unfortunately I wasn't around the right kind of people. And this isn't just necessarily to do with the vegan community, but society in general. Like we get envious when we see the rich, the famous, or the successful, or when we see other people being successful. There's that meme that's out there that says, if you post on social media, you got a promotion, you get 200 likes. If you post that you started your own business, you get 2 likes. Like, people don't necessarily like to see others being successful, because we have a bit of a hang up, I think, where if we see someone making money or becoming successful, we kind of feel like that's taking stuff off the table for us. But there's enough opportunity and enough stuff out there in the world, including money, where we could all be successful. And it's not like we're against each other, especially not when it's something completely different, like a camp out, like a festival. That's not in competition with me, or probably with anybody out there, because there is no other vegan festival out there. So ultimately it comes down to ego and people feeling like they're probably not doing enough for whatever reason, or they just get jealous that someone else is doing well. And they don't like it. But like I said, I had that at the start, where I was getting some properties, some movement, and then I'd have people saying, you're just like you're a terrible landlord, or you're one of the reasons why I can't buy a house and all that kind of shit. I'm like, no, if you can't buy a house, it's you. It's not down to me. Don't blame your problems on me, etc. But I think a lot of the time it does come down to jealousy, doesn't it? And people, unfortunately, have a hang up. They have an ego, and they don't like to see other people doing well, even if it's something like a festival, a camp out, because camp out does so much good for so many people. Like,
it does.
I can't even, like, it's ridiculous. Like, I was speaking to a friend of mine. He doesn't go to camp out anymore because he lives in another country, but he used to say, he was a vendor, and he said that by far, camp out was by far their most profitable weekend. It was like the backbone of holding their business up. The amount of money they would make from 2 days at camp out surpassed anything they would do for the rest of the year. So it's keeping certain vegan food vendors going, vegan businesses going. It inspires people to be activists. When I went 2017, that's when I first met or saw James Aspey, and his talk blew me away, and that spurred me on to go and do more activism, or to become an activist. I wasn't even doing activism at that point. It was his talk that made me become an activist. And you can't tell me that doesn't happen every single year, because there's now so many talks that go on by so many activists. It either makes you become an activist, or it spurs you on to do it again. Because one of the things I'm looking forward to this year is going to see some talks, mainly like, Earthling Ed and these other activists. And I think it's going to spur me back into getting into activism. So it's like the kick up the arse that I'm going to need. As well as that, it's also great because we get to go somewhere where we know it's going to be full of vegans. We ain't got to worry about meat being cooked or meat being served up elsewhere. And it's a bit of a let loose down for all of us. Like, why do people shit on this? I do not know. It ain't perfect. it can't be perfect. We don't live in a perfect world.
Yeah. It's an absolute game changer. You're right. And just on that jealousy thing, right? It's like I posted a status the other day. I was saying, like, it seems to be the mantra in the vegan movement right now is support vegan businesses until they get successful. Because if the camp out was this tiny little thing, like it was in 2016, which was the first ever one, which you didn't go to, that was literally like a few hundred people in a field.
Was you there for that one?
Yeah, I was. That was brilliant as well.
Just a big piss up, basically. In the park.
It was a big piss up with just one food stall, Lee. One food stall, and just a bunch of people getting pissed in a field and a little music tent. That was it.
Nice. Love it.
It was hilarious. And, there was no, I think people were quite, passionate then about, support this. This sounds like a cool idea. Then the minute it got like big, now it's this, now Jordan's this like evil capitalist, like, maniac who wants world domination or something. And it's, on this point of jealousy, it's natural and it's fine actually to be jealous. It's just how we use that jealousy.
Use it. 100%.
Yeah, I mean, if someone asked me, George, are you jealous of Lee or of Jordan for having a good business and living like a good? I'm like, yeah, for sure I am, but that doesn't mean I'm gonna tear them down. It's like jealousy in a good way. It's like well done kind of thing. I wish like we wish that we had better lives in many ways. That's absolutely fine. But that's like the goal there is then fucking better yourself. Don't do what's called tall poppy syndrome and just fucking start tearing other people down. Why aren't we wishing success on other vegans? Don't we want Jordan to do well with this? Don't we want the camp out to take off and be even bigger than it is? It's just crazy to me. It's like we're stepping backwards as a fucking movement. We want veganism to get bigger.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not envious or jealous of Jordan because I see the amount of shit he has to go through and no doubt the amount of work he has to put into that fucking camp out now, considering how big it's getting. And I'm not particularly envious of that. Although this is a different subject, but I could see maybe me, like, that's something that I could see helping out with. I see that and I'm like, that is something that could explode. You could that could be 2 days potentially. You could split that up and you could make two. You could do it earlier in the summer, later in the summer, and have 2 festivals potentially. Anyway, that's a different subject. But there's that again, coming back to mindset. When I first started my property business, one thing I got taught is you're never going to be rich and successful if you're envious of the rich and successful. You've got to change your mindset, and rather than get annoyed and angry at people that are rich or successful, you've got to ask, how did they do that? You've got to get up close to them, see what they do. If you want to be successful, you've got to learn from successful people. So I kind of like switch my mindset around that, because you're never going to be rich if you envy the rich, So that was something that I had to do at the start. But it's sad because when he, obviously 2016 and 17, I don't know this for sure, but I heard that they lost money at those first 2 campouts. They didn't. Jordan, his sister, whoever it was that started camp out, they didn't look at it and go, I know how we can become successful and rich. We'll start this festival in a field with 200 people. We're bound to make loads. They didn't do that. They did it because they saw it as being a good thing and something that people could take a lot of benefit from.
Yeah.
They didn't think, oh, I know we can make loads of money from this. And even if they did, like, I know loads of people that have vegan businesses, and I tip my hat to them. If they've built a business that takes care of them and they've got money behind them, that's fucking great. What they choose to do with it is their business. At the end of the day, if the business is strong, it's a vegan business, so it's only a good thing. If they want to treat themselves to whatever that might be, or if they want to give every single penny of it to a sanctuary, that is their business. I'm not going to judge them. Yeah. I don't give every single penny I earn to sanctuaries. I give what I can. I always think I could give more, as we all fucking do, right? We all have that hang up in our head that we could probably give more. So I'm not going to judge anybody by what they give to people, because I don't know what their financial issue is. I don't know what happened in the past, etc., what's going on now. So it's sad to see so many people judging Jordan because it's doing well, because I would assume he's put a fucking lot of effort in for that doing well the way it is now.
Oh, he goes through so much stress every year to put it together. And the next thing I was going to ask you, this could be related. It doesn't necessarily have to be related to money or that kind of stuff. But what would you say is the main issue holding back the animal rights movement right now?
I mean, I've been out of it for a little while, so it's hard to say exactly. But the issue that I've always found is just supporting one another, or at least just not, like you said, pulling each other down. Just
Yeah.
if you're not particularly, there's certain organizations out there that are in the animal rights movement that I am not particularly, I don't think the way they're doing it is particularly great, but I am not going to pull them down. I'm just not going to get involved with them. And if I've got any issues and I know someone that's involved with it, I'll speak to them directly. I will not jump on social media and just start plastering abuse or shit about them. Like, I got so angry when I saw a photo, was it last week before? It was, it must have been outside Stamford Hall, and they've got some guys with some guns that are just about to go shooting or something, and it said vegan camp out supporting animal abuse since 2016 or something like that. And I was like, are you fucking for real? Like, it's so ridiculous. And then I just skimmed the surface of it. Like, I know you delved into it a lot more, but I just put out there, like, what the fuck are you all talking about? Do you know another venue that you can find that is completely vegan friendly in the UK? Like, it doesn't exist. Are you fucking nuts? And there were some ridiculous comments. One person, this is why I just gave up. One person was like, has anyone contacted Lewis Hamilton? Maybe he's got something. And I'm like, are you fucking serious? Lewis Hamilton, who's one of the most famous people in the world, we're just going to drop him a message and be like, have you got any spare bits of land laying around the
We
UK?
can use your garden, Lewis Hamilton. It's crazy. It's hilarious that they actually think that's something they could ask him. It's just ridiculous. Do you know my favorite one? This is like my favorite little conspiracy theory about the camp out is that Earthling Ed works undercover for MI7 and Viva is a government military program or something like that.
I mean, it sounds pretty cool. Like, yeah, that Earthling and MI7, I could probably even envision that. But yeah, it's fucking nuts, some of the things you hear. But again, this isn't necessarily just in the vegan movement. It might just be in society in general. It probably is. But it's just a shame that, like I said earlier, the thing that we're fighting for is so emotional for us. It is life and death. You would have thought that we can all just kind of put our little differences aside and just fucking clug together and do shit. And if you're not happy with how other people are doing it, chat to them, try and understand it, but don't just bash them and tear them down. I don't see how that helps anyone. Like, people were saying about how we should all go to sanctuary festivals. And I've been to one. I've been to a friend down South London. It was great. But there are a number of flaws that I can see with that, again, I'm not going to go online and I'm not going to start plastering things about these sanctuaries. If I've got any problems, I'll go to them. I'll talk to the people that run the sanctuaries and ask them the issues that I've got. But they've got animals on them. You can't expect to have 10,000 people on a fucking sanctuary. Like, it's just, it's not practical. So that is not a replacement, in my opinion.
Yeah, that won't work.
No, and I don't, like I say, I've got a few issues around potentially animal sanctuaries having festivals. But yeah, it's just, like I say, I just dipped into it slightly, and I was quickly like, this is exactly why I didn't fucking get involved in why I come out of the animal rights movement, because it's just so fucking toxic. I don't understand why people get so angry at all this stuff. And from what I can tell, you'll probably correct me on this, but the place that Camp Out is going to happen this year, they've actually agreed to not do any more of the thing that everyone's getting hung up about. Is that right? Like, they're not doing any more shootings?
Apparently, I think shoots will continue. I think they've banned specifically hunts or something. I mean, it's, whatever. They're still gonna, the murderous activities will long continue there. Whether camp out's there or not, it's a non-vegan venue, and they take money for weddings. If you want to shoot some fucking animals there, if you probably want to fish there, they'll host whatever you fucking pay them for. But what people aren't understanding is, when you buy a ticket to camp out, you're not funding the shoots any more than you're paying for someone else's wedding, because weddings in there. It's a venue in a non-vegan country that allows vegan events and non-vegan events.
Yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, mate, the haters are going to hate. And this, if I ever get a chance to speak to Jordan, I just might say this to him next time. Like, you just got to get on with it. Like, there's always going to be people that are trying to pull you down. Try not to waste too much effort or energy into it, and just crack on. Like you say, there's V-Fest that's done at somewhere in Kensington, I think it is. Again, that'll be at a venue.
That was at a fishing lake last year. Yeah.
So it's just like
it's impossible.
It's impossible. Like, we live on a tiny island as well with limited bits of land. Like, what do people seriously think? There's just bits of land laying around out there that have got electricity, toilet, showers that don't have any links or have any
They're just reserved specifically for vegans, Lee.
It's just fucking mad. And I don't understand what goes through people's mind. Like, just think about this rationally.
Yeah.
Where do you expect it to be? Seriously. Yeah.
Lee, we're coming to the end of the podcast now. So before we go, I'll ask you just if you could just give one tip, your biggest one tip for someone who wants to leave their 9 to 5 or the night shift or whatever it is they're doing in their soul destroying job and become successful, be their own boss, set up their own business. What is that one tip that you would give them?
I think at the start I spoke about it, like mindset and like to start with, when I got my business property started, I shut off listening to friends and family because they just weren't giving me what I needed, which was help, inspiration, ideas. And I spent a lot of time on YouTube. That's where I found people like Gary Vaynerchuk, Tony Robbins, like people that can inspire you and keep you motivated and keep you going. That would probably be my biggest tip to start with. Like, get around people like that. Get those kind of words and thoughts going through your head, rather than Bob down the pub who's been at the same job for the last 40 years. You go and talk to him about starting a business and he's going to tell you that you're mad, that you're stupid, that you can't do it. Same thing, unfortunately, is probably going to happen with your partner or your mum or dad. Like, again, Gary Vaynerchuk talks about this all the time, where you've just got to shut those voices off and just concentrate on people that do keep you going, and just make sure that you don't give up.
Yeah. Well, Lee, thank you for your sanity in this world and in this movement where there's so much toxicity. And I really appreciate you coming on the show and not only helping vegans by giving your advice from the business side of things, but also giving your opinion on the ongoing dramas in the movements and that. And I just want to thank you for your input in the movement. I know you said you haven't been active on the streets for a while, but you're still putting your money into just causes. And yeah, I want to thank you for that. So thanks a lot for being on the show.
Thank you, mate. Absolutely no problem. Pleasure.